Caressa sent me this story, and yes, we are talking about the Aunt Jemima topic yet again. And this is actually going to piggyback off of the video I did about that Reagan Escade and that branding and the thing that she talked about. And I think I talked about how companies like this one and, with Jack Daniels with the whiskey, how black people came up with these things, or they were the face of certain brands, but their family and them never got any credit, nor did they get any compensation for it. And what I'm about to talk to you about right now is going to pretty much go in more depth to it. So I'm about to read this article coming from the Yahoo Finance. It says Aunt Jemima's relatives want reparations. The article was posted on June 29th, 2020. Earlier this month, when Quaker Oats announced that Aunt Jemima would get a new name and logo, a 47-year-old truck driver named Larnell Evans Jr. received the news with some ambivalence. Evans is the great-great-grandson of Anna Short Harrington, one of the several actresses who played Aunt Jemima at fairs and in advertisement throughout the early 20th century. The company's rebrand and future $5 million donation rang hollow to him. That's the easy way for them to go, Evans told the Daily Beast. I guess you would say that's saving money. He had a different reckoning in mind. 6 years ago, Evans and his nephew Denez Hunter tried to confront Quaker Oats about their shared history in federal court. In September of 2014, they filed a federal lawsuit against PepsiCo, the corporate owner of Quaker Oats, alleging that Harrington had helped develop Aunt Jemima's signature self-rising pancake mix and that the company had used her likeness as its logo without providing proper compensation. They asked for $2 billion in relief and share of sale revenue. And Aunt Jemima, Quaker Oats still possesses one of the most recognizable and thus valuable trademarks in history, the complaint read. Defendants' actions epitomize what is the worst in corporate America, exemplifying the worst business practices anywhere on the planet. Following publication, Quaker Oats stated, Aunt Jemima was not a real person or based on one individual. Well, some will beg to differ. Says during the first few decades of the 20th century, in support of the already existing brand, there were women hired to represent Aunt Jemima at public events and in marketing materials. The legal saga spanned 5 years of filings, but collapsed after a Chicago judge dismissed the case and later barred Hunter from further filings without court approval. So the reason why they're saying that it wasn't based off of anybody is so that the family could not get any type of restitution from the brand itself. They tend to do that a lot, especially when it comes to black people trying to get something off of the name of an ancestor or a likeness of someone they were related to. Like, look at what happened with the whiskey with Jack Daniels with Nearest Green. Like, they held that fortune forever. We thinking Jack Daniels was really named after someone named Jack Daniels, only to find out that the person who made it was a black man. Unfortunately, because he was a slave, property couldn't own property. But I think now his family is finally, his descendants are finally getting the restitution, or you could say the reparations that they properly deserve. But look at how much money they lost over the years. And the same thing with this family here. See, they don't want to come up off of because they know how powerful this brand is. They said, we'll get rid of the name, but as long as we don't have to pay you anything, then we'll be good. The legal saga spanned 5 years of filings, but collapsed after a Chicago judge dismissed the case and later barred. Okay, I read that part. This is the loss hinged less on the content of their case, however, than its presentation. Throughout the dispute, Hunter and Evans represented themselves without an attorney. Hunter drafted the motions. Evans proofread. Law was always a very interesting topic for both of us, Evans said, but we wish we'd hired a lawyer because they didn't take the case seriously. While the documents often reflected a firm grasp of legal convention, Hunter at times slipped into first person or implied larger conspiracies, none too different from actual malicious actions the American government carried out against black people. Still, the documents is an elicited snark from judicial authorities at over 50,000 words. Hunter's complaint is longer than both the Great Gatsby and the King James Bible's version of the Book of Genesis. The dismissal of a subsequent filing in Minnesota reads, the overlong complaint meanders across a vast landscape pocket by conspiracy. Portions of the complaint are written in what appears to be Chinese. A good deal of the original complaint, however, bears out in contemporaneous reports about Harrington's life and work. Born in 1897, Anna Shore Harrington grew up in Marlboro County, South Carolina, and worked as a sharecropper on a cotton and tobacco plantation for several years. In the 1920s, according to a November 12, 1995 news article syndicated across the country, Harrington moved to Syracuse, New York, where she worked for several college fraternities. A skilled cook, Harrington earned a reputation at the frats for her pancakes, which soon spread around campus and into the city. Harrington became a kind of local celebrity who appeared in regional news and at state fairs, preparing her sought-after recipes for large crowds. It was at one such fair in 1935, according to the story of Aunt Jemima, a children's book from South Carolina author John Troy McQueen, that the Quaker Oats Company recruited Harrington to play Aunt Jemima. The position took Harrington across the country to perform at store openings and other public events, according to her entry in South Carolina's Encyclopedia, a joint archival project from several universities. By the time of her death, the entry reads, the former sharecropper owned 2 homes and lived in an area occupied by the black elite of Syracuse. She had her own recipes, which was very unique. Evans said, you didn't hear of people having their own recipes, especially working for Quaker Oats. You would think working for Quaker Oats, whatever they hired them to do, that's what they would do. And she was promoting Quaker Oats products, but she was also promoting her own products. The lawsuit Evans and Hunter filed hinged on the Aunt Jemima logo that Quaker Oats copyrighted in 1936, the year after she began working for them. They claimed the image was based on a rendering of Harrington's face as laid out in a contract signed by both parties. But Quaker Oats rejected the claim, arguing that the character was fictitious and had never been based on a living person. This is a line Quaker Oats has stuck to since at least 1948, when they renewed the alleged Harrington trademark and added a note stating the image did not depict a living person. And as recently as 2015, when historian Sherry Williams found the long missing grave of Nancy Green, the most famous Aunt Jemima, Quaker Oats refused to fund her gravestone. Their corporate response was that Nancy Green and Aunt Jemima aren't the same, and that Aunt Jemima is a fictitious character. The precise terms of Harrington's employment remain unclear. Before the lawsuit, Evans and Hunter requested Quaker Oats provide Harrington's contract for review. In an email submitted as evidence, Quaker claimed they were actively searching for contracts that would pertain to Miss Anna Harrington, but could not locate any document negotiating her terms. In the end, PepsiCo filed to dismiss the case on 3 grounds: that the statute of limitations had lapsed, that their 15 claims either weren't recognized by law, weren't established with evidence, or were implausible, and that the uncle and nephew lacked documentation proving their relation to Harrington or her estate. Evans found it galling. We had a family tree. We had all the death certificates. We had the obituaries. There's no way they can say, oh, they're not related. The 47-year-old father said, I always knew she played Aunt Jemima. That's just a given fact. And see, now what they're going to do is they're going to play it on saying that these guys are just some sack chasers. They're not really related to her, which is what they're standing by and everything like that. But if they have all the documents and proof, then, hey, it's a possibility. You never know. You don't just get that stuff from anywhere. But they said, and one thing that they did say that I have to agree with them with, is that they wish that they had other legal representation instead of trying to represent themselves, because they said they didn't take them seriously as representing themselves. And I find that in a lot of law cases, a lot of court proceedings, that when you try to act as your own attorney, they usually don't take you seriously. I'm not saying that there aren't times when people have won their own cases when they represented themselves, but it's very rare that they do so. And these guys right here, they said they have a background in law, but I hope that they get whatever it is that they are trying to receive. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a hard battle, because they're not trying to come up off of this. It was like pulling teeth to try to change the name of the syrup because of what was going on, because people have been trying to get that name changed for years, like I said before. But when they see something, like they say, strike while the iron is hot, that iron has been burning for years. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm not going to get my hopes up.